Right now, the clock is ticking, and the Republicans have offered up their ransom note, but the White House says they will not negotiate with economic terrorists. How this all shakes out, a huge question mark as time quickly goes by. And next, the president today spoke by phone with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. It is the first conversation between American and Iranian presidents in more than 30 years. Does this signify a tectonic shift when it comes to U.S.-Iranian relations? And later, Newark Mayor Cory Booker, he's found himself in a bit of a Twitter headache, if not scandal. No, it's not the tawdry wiener kind of thing here, but he did exchange a few direct messages with a stripper on the West Coast. Will this impact his campaign? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us on what turned out to be a very busy Friday, September 27, 2013. Now, a lot to talk about in the next 60 minutes, but we begin with the sand running out of the hourglass when it comes to avoiding a government shutdown. Now, tonight, we are just 4 days from that possible government lockdown and 16 days from what arguably could be much more significant. I'm talking about debt default. That's unless a debt limit deal is reached. I want to bring in first our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, who's got the very latest for us. And a lot of developments today that many people thought, at least they didn't see coming this morning.
Yeah, Rich, and let's start with that first headline. That's the budget deal. D.C. must approve by midnight Monday or the government shuts down. But tonight there is some more reason for optimism that it may not come to that as a way out of the mess moved from the Senate back to the House.
President Obama had a strong message for House Republicans.
So over the next 3 days, House Republicans will have to decide whether to join the Senate and keep the government open or shut it down because they can't get their way.
Senate Democrats said they did their part.
We've passed the only bill that can avert a government shutdown Monday night.
This afternoon, the Senate passed a spending bill to keep the government running through November 15th, and it also keeps the health care law funded.
The yeas are 54, the nays are 44. And the bill, as amended, is passed.
It was a straight party line vote. No Republicans voted in favor.
The only thing we want to shut down is Obamacare.
Now it's over to the House, which passed its own spending bill last week, but that bill defunded Obamacare, and Republican leaders say they're not going to accept what the Senate sends back. So now it's up to House Speaker John Boehner to come up with a game plan to avoid a shutdown.
It's impossible for Democrats to negotiate with House Republicans, but they can't even negotiate with themselves.
If the government does shut down on October 1st, federal workers will be forced to stay home, museums and national parks will be closed, and some government services will stop. The next fight is quickly looming. The government will hit its credit limit on October 17th unless Congress votes to raise the debt ceiling. House Republicans are trying to use that battle to push President Obama to agree to massive spending cuts.
In recent days, we've been watching and reporting on the split within the GOP on the budget as Tea Partiers, including Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, push for a shutdown as leverage for defunding Obamacare, while others pushed back. And last night on the program, we wondered how potential 2016 candidates like, let's say, Chris Christie might react. Today, we got our answer.
Do you think that the Republicans should be forcing a shutdown of the government if they don't get their way?
No, I think there's got to be a solution other than that. And I don't think that we should be doing that. I don't think, and I quite frankly, to be fair, I don't think you hear responsible Republican leaders advocating a shutdown of the government.
So those who are advocating it, are they irresponsible?
Well, I think it's always irresponsible if you're running the government to be advocating for shutting it down. That, by definition, is a failure. You got to work it out. They'll work it out this week. I'm confident they will, because I don't think anybody wants to go down that road.
But while there appears to be some progress on the budget, no such luck on the debt limit and a possible default. Yesterday, House Republicans listed 11 demands they want in exchange for raising the debt limit, from an Obamacare delay to the XL Keystone pipeline to a host of GOP chestnut issues that would not pass on their own. They haven't passed or even come close over the past 3 years and are now being used, as some would say, as ransom on the debt limit. And if we default, the impact could be devastating. Forget about the economic recovery. You could see another recession. Credit rating hit is likely. That happened in 2011. Markets would drop, so would your 401k, and borrowing on all levels would get more expensive. And if bond rates go up just a half a point, it cost the economy $75 billion. By the way, 2 years ago, which actually stopped short of a default, that cost the U.S. $1.3 billion. And as we said before, that's the ransom being demanded to save the life of the economy. So how does this all play out? Well, in movie terms, it either plays out like this.
This is what waits for the man who took him. This is your ransom.
He was about to say, this is your ransom, or does the White House fight back, changing the plot to this?
This is what waits for the man who took him. This is your ransom. This is as close as you'll ever get to it. Instead, I'm offering this money as a reward on your head.
Just a matter of whether we want to turn it around or whether the president wants to turn it around on Congress, Rich. So I guess in my analogy, President Obama is Mel Gibson.
I don't think he'd like that. Thank you, Andrew. I want to bring in the rest of our panel on this. Dominic Carter, political journalist, author here, and retired Lieutenant Colonel Mark Rosen, veteran of the war in Afghanistan, executive in the financial service industry as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We had a really interesting conversation last night. We had both former Congressman Chris Shays, Bob Turner, and also Tom Doherty, who's Republicans. And the conversations on and off camera were equally interesting to me, Mark, because there is a sense, and I thought it was fascinating what Chris Christie had to say, you know, about, well, you don't hear serious Republicans saying this. You don't have to read anything between the lines to figure out what he, and I think a growing chorus that are trying to figure out not just 2016 terrain, but even the next couple of years in Washington, how to handle the Tea Party. This is a defining moment in many ways for the GOP. Forget what the president does, Democrats, they have to figure out who speaks for them, don't they?
You almost have to feel sorry for the Republican Party right now.
Certainly for John Boehner.
And the box that they've put themselves in. Look, I have sympathy with the objectives that they have. They want to reduce government spending. Yep. They want to empower the free market to expand and grow. But they are only one branch of Congress, so they have a weak hand. So what do we do? Well, and again, my sympathy is with them, but it is certainly not shutting down the government. But every single time we do this, there is a negotiation, right? So go throughout history, to include, at that time, Senator Obama, who said, this is crazy. Why are we upping the debt limit yet again? So every single time there's a negotiation, but it needs to be negotiated with when you have the means to succeed. And right now, what was put on the table by some Republicans is not winnable.